Ryan, we've just had the World Cup squad announcement just a few days ago. Not too many surprises, but inevitably, in some ways, I think the Bok coaching staff went with the conventional 17-14 split. So we thought Ulster might crack the nod and Gelant might miss out. But maybe we can unpack it a little bit just in terms of what the Bok coaching staff are thinking. Clearly, they felt a need for a second specialist fullback, and then felt just 5 loose forwards would be sufficient in terms of the cover that's required. For me, it's quite interesting because Khaleesi's been under a little bit of an injury cloud, and I can't quite see Gelant making the bench for the big games at least. So for me, I think he's there kind of just to really provide that emergency cover in a dire situation. But otherwise, I think he's one of the guys that will have to play a bigger role on the fringes and at training and hopefully keep that morale up despite not playing that much.
Yeah, I mean, we got the split wrong. Both you and I went for 18-13 split there, thinking that Gelant was going to be the guy to miss out. I mean, we both suspected that was Ulster or Gelant, but just as a point of departure, I think Rassie has kind of earned our trust, and so whatever the reasoning was behind going with Gelant, whether he's been in the system longer, whether Rassie doesn't trust any of the kind of backup fullbacks that he's got in his squad. I mean, I don't know, but I think he's earned our trust. I think it's a type of problem that we should be happy to have, as opposed to previous World Cup squad announcements that have been just clothed in controversy, man. And so, yeah, I feel for Ulster. I thought he brought something to that pack, a little bit of Grant and a little bit of Pitbull, and his versatility was a big kind of strength for me. But it's kind of where it is now. I don't see it being too big a factor. Also, if Rassie is looking with an eye to the future, having a player like Gelant involved in a World Cup campaign, if he's pinned him as the successor to Willie, then I can see it kind of working in that context. But I mean, I don't have any clear answers. But I don't think it's a massive deal. I think there's more upside to it in the context that I just mentioned now than Ulster, for example, who's kind of at the end of his career. I mean, doesn't have too much ahead of him. Gelant, on the other hand, is just in the infancy of it.
Yeah.
World Cup campaign can't help him, even if he's carrying tackle bags for the duration of the time in Japan.
Yeah, so there may be some bigger picture thinking in that one. And also, I'm sure we'll be on that standby list in case anything happens. But just as we were chatting last week about the Boks having an almost perfect build-up, there were a couple of bombshells over the weekend, just on the eve of the squad announcement, with Etzebeth being caught up in a little bit of a controversy, or it could even become a much bigger controversy in the sense that there was talk of him being involved in an incident in Langebaan. Stuff started going around on social media about there being racial connotations. So that was a little bit of an unnecessary and certainly concerning distraction. It seems that he's stated that there's no, he had no involvement. He's refuted all of that. But a little bit of an ugly sort of thing to happen, on the weekend before the squad announcement. And then Apiwe Dianti, who, we've also chatted about before and said it's almost unthinkable that he wouldn't be in the squad. Rassie has said, he was going to miss out because of injury, but he's come back with a test for substance or prohibited substance, so he's returned an adverse finding, and his B sample now comes back this week. So not ideal, those two little sort of things with big players in our South African context. I don't know if you think any of that will have an effect as the team now heads to Japan.
Dianti, I'm worried about more than Etzebeth. So, I mean, you and I have both we've been on tour with the Springboks. You've seen them out. I think Thursday is their day off, so Wednesday they generally go out and that type of thing. I mean, I've seen countless occasions where guys have tried to just rile them up in bars and that type of thing in that sort of setting. And I mean, I suspect it's something similar to that as far as Etzebeth is concerned. I hope for his sake, and I mean, in a broader sense, that there was no racist kind of undertones or even something quite overt. Dianti, I'm worried about, because look, testing can be flawed sometimes, but for the vast majority of the time, they're pretty accurate. I'm actually deeply concerned for him, because he's a great player, and by all accounts a fine man. But we've seen this with South African players. We've seen it with players across the board before. So, I mean, I'm praying that the B sample comes back negative and that there was some sort of mix-up, or that he's got a proper kind of justification, like a legitimate excuse for why he would have tested positive in the first round. But yeah, I'm really worried about him. I don't know.
What I thought was quite fascinating is normally when you have this sort of thing happen, the news gets leaked or the press gets wind of it or something of that nature, or the drug institute who tested him releases that information. But Deontay preempted it on Saturday and released his own statement before anything had come from SARugby or the South African Institute for Drug-Free Sport. So, I think he wanted to get ahead of it and state, on the record, first and foremost from his side what, he felt had happened. So, he said it would be senseless and stupid for him to have done that. It just starts to blur the lines about, in this professional age, do they ever put anything in their body that they aren't aware of? Is there any form of contamination? I'm sure he'll have a defense, especially if that B sample comes back also with an adverse finding. But we'll find that out later and probably have to unpack that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, I hope that B sample comes back negative. I really do. But I mean, we've seen this. It's not like the first time this has happened, right? And it's not the first time a player has tried to get ahead of the news. And so, I mean, I understand why Deontay would go that route. And I'm not accusing him of anything. And let's just establish that. But I mean, we've seen this movie before. I hope it's got a different ending. I really do. Yeah.
Sure. Ryan, let's wrap. We spoke 2 or 3 weeks ago about who the Boks might look to in terms of replacing Swayze de Bruyn, who pulled out of that coaching staff. Very interesting today, they confirmed Felix Jones, someone who Rassie Erasmus has worked with in Ireland. He's been an assistant at Munster. He's going to join the team now as the head to the World Cup. So we thought they might go something completely left field. I think you said Scott Robertson.
Yeah.
I thought maybe they would go with Johan Ackerman from England. So Rassie's gone with someone he knows from Ireland and he worked with there. I think he has looked to get him involved previously, but he was contractually obligated elsewhere. So they've been able to rope him in, and I thought the press release was fascinating in that they said the players had actually chatted about it and said they didn't want a like-for-like replacement with an attack coach. They wanted someone to come in and help with defensive structures and sort of unpacking the opposition in that kind of structural framework, which I thought was interesting that the players kind of said this is who they were looking for. Rassie identified his person and they've got him in. Do you think he could be an Eddie Jones type figure like we saw in 2007, who came in late, added a fresh voice and really revolutionized the way the team went about it? I don't know if you know much about him, because I actually don't.
Yeah, I was just done some surface kind of research around him, but just before we get there, again, I think it goes back to the previous point. Rassie has earned certainly my trust. I mean, I can't speak for everyone. Rassie's earned my trust. He's made this selection based on a professional relationship that he's got with this guy, and I think you've kind of got to go let's see where the fruits are of this particular appointment. From you and I were talking off camera, we know very little about this guy. Some surface research that I've done is just showing it's highly respected in Ireland, and quite progressive in his thinking and his tactics and his tactical philosophy in a lot of ways, which I understand why Rassie would be drawn to somebody like that, because at his very core he's an innovator, right? And a rugby progressive. So I can see why he'd be drawn to that selection. So let's wait and see how he contributes. I think any sort of outside person that's going to come into the camp now, that's got his credibility established there. I mean, what did he make? 3 consecutive Heineken Cup semi-finals or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Or he's involved in the coaching staff for those teams. I mean, he's got a track record. He's got established credibility in the game. The players would have a sense of who he is, or would definitely have heard about him. Rugby is not a major community. But as any fresh eyes is going to bring something to that camp.
Yeah.
So let's hope in his area of expertise, or the area that they asked him to. And it was interesting for me as well that Rassie would have approached the players and gone kind of, what do you think? because again, it speaks to a culture of trust, you know. I don't imagine you would have thrown it open to the whole group. Probably a core of senior players that you would have asked about it, but it's just a culture of trust. And Rassie that also speaks to Rassie's comfort in his role. He doesn't feel threatened. He's got a clear plan of what he wants to do, but he understands the value of speaking to certainly senior players. So yeah, I hope in the areas that they have identified that this coach can make a difference. But let's wait and see.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Ryan. I think we'll wrap there because Box head off to Japan on Friday and plenty more to chat about in the weeks to come.
Cool.